Welcome back, folks, to the Membership Machine Show. This is episode 134. In this episode, we're going to be talking about microlearning, what it is, who's it aimed for, what are some of the best SaaS and WordPress solutions that enable you to do microlearning. I'm really interested in see what Kirk's views are of microlearning. Is it bit fluffy or is there a core part of it? I've got my own views though, but it should be a great show. So, Kirk, would you like to introduce yourself to the new listeners and viewers?
Sure thing, Jonathan. My name is Kurt von Annen. I own an agency called Mañana No Mas. We focus largely on learning and membership websites, and we also work directly for WP-Tonic and support the customers there.
That's fantastic. Like I say, it should be a great show. You should get some great tips and insights from it. But before we go into the meat and potatoes, we've got a message from one of our major sponsor, Kinsta. Great company. We really appreciate their support. We will be back in a few moments, folks.
Hey, running a business is tough. You shouldn't have to worry about your website too. With Kinsta's managed hosting for WordPress, you get lightning fast load times, enterprise-grade security, and 24/7 expert support from real humans. Switch to Kinsta and see site speeds improve by up to 200% with effortless migrations and powerful, easy-to-use dashboard. Join over 120,000 other businesses who also trust Kinsta. Get your first month for free at kinsta.com. That's KINSTA.com. Kinsta. Simply better hosting.
We're coming back. I also want to take the opportunity to tell you about a great course that Kirk has developed with WP-Tonic. It shows you how to build a membership website on WordPress from beginning to end using some of the best tools in WordPress. It's a great value course. It's normally around $49. You can get it for half price. Plus, when you purchase the course, you will be sent a coupon code that will take 50% off your first year hosting with the starter plan with WP-Tonic. Great hosting, plus you get all the WordPress tools that Kirk shows you how to build your membership website. It's a great package. Where you can get it? Well, basically, you need to go over to wp-tonic.com/deals, wp-tonic.com/deals. Plus, there's a created list of the best WordPress plugins, plus some special offers from the sponsors, and a load of other free resources. What more could you ask for? That's what I think. So let's go straight into it. Microlearning. So, Kirk, can you give us a quick outline what the concept's about and some of your top-level views about it, Kirk?
Well, let's just start with my top-level view. This is a widely misused or abused phrase. So, in the simplest of terms, if we were to think about like an educational designer, instructional designer, somebody like that, we would say, okay, microlearning is the ability to take subject matter and break it into very small consumable pieces. I mean, that's basically what microlearning was and is meant to be. But now we're starting to see people kind of like misuse it a little bit and make it seem like, oh, microlearning is just for your phone, or microlearning is this special product that makes, special training content that's just for this purpose. It's not true. Microlearning is just taking a broad subject and being able to break it down into very small, manageable pieces that are easily learned. And there's a lot of value to that process. Corporately speaking, corporations with captive students, captive audiences, they might make courses that are 3 hours, 2 hours long, and it's to get people to take those courses is painful. Whereas with microlearning, people get those quick dopamine hits. They finish things quickly. They move on to the next thing. So there's a great reasoning behind the subject. I just think it's largely misused, or maybe the expectations are blown out of proportion based on what it actually is.
I think that's fantastic. I've got two quick observations, and I just want to get your views on this.
Yeah.
I think what you said is it's a very similar situation to gamification and how that has been treated. And the second thing is, I think micro learning was really driven by the explosion of mobile usage, and a lot of the traditional corporate level learning management systems were designed before the explosion of mobile devices. I know that sounds crazy, but we're only talking around 2008, 2009, 2010. It's about 15 years ago that phones really, we're probably talking later than that, around 2016, so about 8 years. But the whole market when it comes to e-learning is totally changed because of mobile devices. And I think a lot of these players that we're going to be discussing in the show entered the market because the traditional level corporate LMS platforms really weren't very suitable for mobile. What's your own thoughts about this, Kurt?
Well, I agree with you part way on the mobile phone usage, but it expands so much further than that. Because if you go back the 12, 10, 15 years, I know I mixed my numbers up in order. I'm seeing if you're paying attention. It was called Vine. Remember, it was called Vines, those little short videos, and then that eventually became like what TikTok is, and then the way that the YouTube videos have progressed from long form content to short form content.
Well, that kind of oscillates. People say it's
Yeah.
all about short, and now people say, well, podcast video, hour, 2 hour. There's some podcast video shows on YouTube that are over 3 hours long, aren't they?
Yeah. Well, Joe Rogan's like the #1 podcast, and his shows are routinely 3 hours. So people have the appetite for it, but over time, from a learner perspective, and again, I'm coming at this from like the corporate training ideology. What they're teaching corporately is they're telling people you got to drive this content down into smaller chunks. And so for instructional design, the formal word for it is chunking. They say take this topic and chunk it. And so that's why
I like that chunking.
Yeah, that's why you see things that are like this broad topic is split into 5 sections. Each of those sections has 10 lessons and all that. Now, a subset issue that happens from microlearning is that you end up repeating or extending some parts of the topic just to fill space. So in the long run, with microlearning, you often end up with a larger body of training or learning than you had originally, right? If that makes sense. So, because some people fall into I need 10 lessons for each of the sections and each of the sections. And so sometimes an instructional designer will feel compelled to add sections to the training that really aren't that important. And so overall, the overall learning package could actually be bigger than if they just made, one large course and knocked it out.
Well, with your background of working with large corporate organizations and being a training manager with some very large motorsports companies, what's been your experience about where micro learning is suitable and when it's not suitable?
So I am a big fan of microlearning in its original intent, and that's breaking things into smaller chunks. If I can make if I could take a large topic, break it into 6 or 7 subtopics, and then break them out, right? So in the terms of power sports testing, let's say I have, electrical diagnostics. Well, electrical diagnostics is actually a pretty big topic, right? So then I might have, what does the electrical system look like? What are the individual networks within the system? And then the next one might be what are the components of each system? And so you could just see how that would just naturally break down. The advantage to this is twofold. One, it's the dopamine hit for the user. So they keep getting that internal sensation like they're accomplishing something. They finish something, they go to the next topic. They finish something, they go to the next topic. And that encourages people to stick with it and pay more attention to the learning. The other side, when I said it's a twofold deal, is once the learning is done, think about some of our long form YouTube content you just mentioned and how now we can, what do they call that? Timestamp or bookmark the chapters in a video. It's the same with the learning. If you use really good descriptive titles for your lessons, those lessons then become an ongoing resource. So when you think in terms of like training people in software, training people in certain functions like production functions at a manufacturing facility, if you use good descriptive terms for the titles of your lessons, it becomes, if it's on a mobile phone, it becomes a mobile kind of like directory of resources where you can go directly to what you need a refresher on, get refreshed, get it in 5 or 10 minutes, and get back to work. Which that's a huge benefit to corporate training.
I was wondering, because I think we're a good combination for this podcast, folks, because I've probably got a bit more experience with WordPress than what Kirk has, but Kirk has a lot more experience in e-learning and training, and I've never worked for a large corporation. I've always been an entrepreneur, run about 2 to 3 reasonably successful businesses. But Kirk's got a lot of corporate experience. But I'm only surmising this, Kirk, and I want to see if I'm on the right track. I think when people moved physical training online, and they did it because they wanted to do it on the cheap, it hasn't worked out that well, because to actually develop a course online so it really does achieve something takes a lot of time and thought, even if you're experienced. And does that also apply to micro? Because they think, well, we're just going to split it up. We're going to take this legacy system and we're just going to split it into digestible little chunks, and that will solve some of the retention problems. I've got a feeling that probably doesn't work that well.
No, there's kind of needs to be a correction in the origin of the conversation. So when they first took e-learning, online, right? And that was a big phrase 15 years ago, right? We're going to take everything online. It used to be customary to go to a corporate's head office, meet all the management, go to a classroom, lock yourself in for death by PowerPoint, and do that for hours or days on end.
God.
And it was very, very
You're
expensive.
making me it sounds like torture.
Well, so it was very, very expensive. So I don't want to mislead people and make it sound like it didn't go the right way. But what happened was, and you got to remember, way back when these companies were using SCORM authoring tools to make SCORM platforms. They're kind of like interactive PowerPoints, for lack of being overly complicated. But it's very expensive to make these. So typically, like I worked at one corporation where we would spend typically 300 to 350 labor hours just assembling the content, the graphics, and making the course. And that course might have been an hour and 15 hour and a half long, right? So somewhere between 75 and 90 minutes. And it would be in SCORM and it would go on that website. Now, here's the killer. The websites that use that SCORM material, and I'm going back 12, 15 years ago, there were only certain players that got into that field, and it was kind of restrictive. And so many corporations paid $250,000, $300,000, $400,000 to have a bespoke custom training website made to put in this content that they were paying hundreds of thousands of dollars per course to make. Now, in terms of did they save money over flying people all over the country in hotels and rental cars and all that? Yes. But it was still very, very expensive. And now what's happened is you have some of this content, I call it legacy content. We have a lot of this legacy content on these legacy platforms that companies are still making huge investments in. But there's a small sliver of the corporate space that is recognizing that they've been way over budget for a substandard product for way too long, and they're looking at other newer platforms. And so the things we're going to discuss today are a few of those newer platforms. You created a really great list, Jonathan. Some of those.
I do actually research the topic
Yeah.
and advise some notes. I think Kirk can see that. So I'm only also I'm surmising, looking at the reviews on these various products that we're going to be discussing. I noticed that some of the pitches were exactly pitched in what you just outlined, because they were saying, well, you've got your existing LMS and
Yeah.
it doesn't really work on mobile. Why don't you supplement, not replace, but utilize our system for the micro learning? And it's like they're getting in with the client, they're opening the door, because they know that moving from one large learning management system to another, when you're a corporate level client and you might have thousands, tens of thousands, is something that is not going to be taken lightly. But if you can just kind of take a chunk, a little bit off, and build a relationship, that's what I was getting with some of the verbiage and the videos from some of these companies. Am I on the right track?
I think you are. In a lot of cases, they're saying, hey, leave your foundational cornerstone long form content on your main bespoke custom LMS. But and you'll see a lot of these options that we're talking about today, they stress onboarding, like our focus is onboarding. Well, their focus is onboarding because you're going to make that out of micro content. You're going to onboard staff to your company. And then once they're in the company and they're established and they want to apply for a new role within the corporation, then they're going to be told, oh, go to this legacy LMS plan to learn about, this clerk position or to learn about this, whatever. But for the basic company onboarding, the simple stuff, they're putting that into these newer micro-learning platforms. I find it really interesting that they're calling them micro-learning platforms and not just e-learning platforms. But micro-learning became such a buzzword that I feel like they're just leveraging it for the marketing sake.
Well, it's a bit similar in the WordPress space with managed hosting. Well,
Yeah.
it's such a generic term now that it could mean almost anything, couldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I definitely have a view what managed WordPress hosting is, but what I think it is and what other people think it is, I think there's a big band of difference, but I might be wrong here. So let's quickly look at a couple, and then we have a break and we'll finish off and have some final thoughts in the second half. So this one from Talent LMS, and they've got a secondary product called Talent Cards. Looked at a lot of reviews online, a lot of YouTube. Seems to be dominated by one reviewer, one company that does a lot of reviews on Talent LMS and also on Talent Cards. Seems to have some great strengths. Price. They've got a free product, but you can only use 5 users on it. And then they've got standard, which is $50 for 50 users. And then you've got Premier, 75 for 50, and you get additional functionality. But you can also add users. They have different levels for more users. So has Talent Cards been on your radar at all? When you got any views about it, Kurt?
I have a fair amount of views about Talent Cards, actually, and this is unique. We don't usually start with one that I like first. We usually pick something I'm not fond of, and then we grow into things I do like. Talent Cards does a really good job. So the thing that people need to recognize, and one of the reasons I like Talent Cards, and let's be clear, they have Talent LMS and then they have Talent Cards, and so they actually took the idea of microlearning and said, hey, let's pare this down. Like what were the features that we need for just microlearning? Like, so it doesn't have all the robust features of a full-fledged LMS. It's got some limited things about it, but it is specifically designated to work on mobile devices, which is great. It's got some design features that work. It's not full-fledged, free flexible design, but they've got some design features that work well. And the pricing, I think, is interesting. And there's something that's always confusing with SaaS platforms and e-learning, and that is, what is a user? And one of the things I like about talent cards is they actually define the user right in their pricing page and say that it is anybody that downloads the app and is registered as one of your students. Whereas in other LMSs, the pricing sometimes is a little higher, but it's only for active users and it's for anyone that signs in during the month. Right. And so I think this is a much clear-cut way for
Yeah, I prefer it. It's just if they've downloaded it, registered their user, end of
Yeah.
story.
So there's things I really like about this platform. One, I'm kind of a fan of Talent LMS. We had the conversation before about LMSs. Talent's one of the top performing ones in my personal opinion.
I agree. It's
Yeah.
I think it's one of the better ones.
And it's the sister product. It's great on mobile, and they're upfront about their pricing. I don't think there's going to be too many surprises for a corporation running their training on this platform.
Yeah. On to another one, 7 Taps. Been around about probably longer than I think, because time has just shot past since COVID. I think time, also I'm getting older, but also I think time really did accelerate during COVID and after it. I might be wrong, but that's just my impression. It's been around about 4 or 5 years, maybe less. Started by a lady entrepreneur that's got a lot of experience. I've got her name though, but she's got a lot of experience. I think she worked for Stanford University as a UX and a e-learning specialist. And they did a lot of promotion online, did a lot of live webinars, did a lot of stuff. And it looks pretty good to me, but the pricing, they've gone a different way. They do offer a free product that doesn't seem to have any user restraints. I might be wrong there, but I did do a reasonable look over. I probably need to look in their support, but I couldn't find a limit. It is cut down to some degree, but then if you want everything, it's price on request, it's enterprise level. So it's a very different pricing model, isn't it? Do you know anything about 7 Taps?
7 Taps is one of the ones that I'm not the hugest fan of, Jonathan, and for a couple of reasons. You mentioned the difference between free and paid. If you really look at what free offers, like it doesn't even offer membership control, right? And so like when you think about being a learning director or a director of learning or whatever your position is, and you start looking at platforms and you start saying, well, wait a minute, how do I manage my students? Well, I can't. There's no learner management tools. There's no learner reminders. There's no SCORM. I had mentioned SCORM earlier. SCORM is very prevalent in the corporate training space, right? Well, SCORM comes on the paid plan, but not on the free plan.
I noticed that, yeah.
Yeah, so you wouldn't be able to do certain things. There's things in the paid platform like having your custom domain, a custom email, or being able to even send emails. You know, you need the paid platform to do that. And so if you sampled the free, I think the only thing you could really do would be try their content creation tools out and maybe throw something together just to kind of sample it. But if you plan to do anything other than that with this platform, you're going to end up paying for it. The other thing is, so there's no apps with the platform, right? So if it's going to be mobile, it's going to be, web-based mobile. And when I did a search for reviews, because I kind of suspected this, most of the negatives on the reviews were lack of freedom in design, lack of freedom for images, like you couldn't use third-party images from third-party sites. There's a lot of restrictions into what you can build in the platform.
So you think Talent Cards has got this balance better?
I think Talent Cards, compared to this, it really is more straightforward. I got a better plan on what I was actually being sold with Talent Cards than what I was being sold with 7 Taps. 7 Taps does a great job of having a lot of content on their pages, but when you actually try to decipher the content and figure out what it is you're actually getting access to or what you're building, it's not super clear.
No, I think they're a great point. And their model is very, to me, it related very much to whatever somebody developing in the WordPress space with a plugin when they're using the freemium model and the premium model. What functionality do they offer in the freemium? If they offer too little, it's slightly crippled. If they offer too much, they're going to go bankrupt because no one's going to buy the Premier plugin. And so it's very tricky, and a lot of people have got it wrong, and that's why they fail in the WordPress space. It's one of the factors. And I think it also applies to SaaS. And what I think you're saying is what they're offering the free and then what they offer in enterprise, which is price on request, it doesn't really quite gel with you. Would that be fair?
Yeah, if I'm going to sample something, I need a little more to sample.
Yeah. Right, I think that's totally fair. I think it's been a great first show. I think we've given you some great info, or Kirk has. I don't think I've done too bad. It's not been a great day for me, folks, but I resigned to my fate. We're going to go for our break, folks, and we'll be back in a few moments. 3, 2, 1.
This podcast episode is brought to you by Lifter LMS, the leading learning management system solution for WordPress. If you or your client are creating any kind of online course, training-based membership website, or any type of e-learning project, Lifter LMS is the most secure, stable, well-supported solution on the market. Go to lifterlms.com and save 20% at checkout with coupon code podcast20. That's podcast20. Enjoy the rest of your show.
We're coming back. We've had a great first show. I just want to take the opportunity to point out a great free resource. Can't talk today. That's the Membership Machine Show Facebook group. Go to Facebook, put in the Membership Machine Show group, and we'll pop up. And it's a great resource if you've got any questions that come in your mind if you're listening or watching this show. It's a total free resource. You can go there, put your question, and there's a nice little community there. I haven't been doing much with it recently because I've had I've been really busy traveling and dealing with stuff, but I'll be getting back into moderating that as well a lot more. But it's a great resource, folks. So think about going there and joining. So let's move on with our journey. Edumi. Yeah. Seemed clean. Seemed okay. Price on request. Watch some videos. Don't know as much about it as the first two that we talked about in the first half of the show. Do you know anything about them?
I am cautiously optimistic that this is a platform I got to sample in 2015. Relatively sure. Now, this platform does something that's very interesting, Jonathan. I don't know if you picked up on this or not. While the other ones are saying, well, we're good on mobile, or we're good on this device, or we're good on that device. This is actually a training delivery system. It's a pretty cool deal. It will deliver training content through Microsoft Teams accounts. It'll deliver training content through SMS messaging. So it's basically it's like an outreach, distribution, learning content scheduler that leverages different channels of communication to deliver the content. I'm making this sound harder than it is. Let's say you have.
I think you did a fab job, because I just watched a few of their videos and read a few reviews. I think they're based in the UK. The couple of videos I watched was done by a very polite English lady. But I didn't do enough reviewing as what you have done.
It's pretty cool. And so you basically go to them, right? Which is probably why the pricing, you go to pricing, there's no answers in pricing, right? It's going to be all bespoke. But it's you go to them and say, well, these are the platforms we communicate with our teams with. So we use SMS messaging, we use, ClickUp, we use like whatever. And then it's going to integrate with what those platforms are are to be like this content delivery mechanism to give people the training that they need on the schedule or timing that they require it. It's a pretty cool system. And the reason I say I'm cautiously optimistic that I tried this, I was at a leadership seminar in Phoenix, Arizona, 2015, when I worked for Suzuki. They sent me there, and two of the vendors that I had met with, because I was the training manager, so they were trying to give me this content. They signed me up for these, and I would get notifications. One came to email, and then a different vendor went to SMS messaging, and you would literally just get the content right to your device on your person, and it was like forced to you, almost like push notifications. And so it was a pretty cool setup. I didn't see the advantage for doing that in like training thousands of motorcycle mechanics around the country. So I didn't see that it was a great use for us in that use case, but I thought the platform itself was really cool.
Right. On to the next one. Code of Talent. Obviously, it's in the title. I think they're aimed at the coding market, and they do have their prices. I did look at the reviews, and I liked the interface. I thought the interface was rather clean looking, and they've got price starter plan, $7.99 per user, up to 25 users per month. Partner, $4.99 per user, 200 users per month, and you can buy packs, or if you go over the user band, they charge you a slightly higher charge per user. But I did like the interface. I don't know if you know anything about them.
Two things rose to the top for me doing my research for the show today. One, and there's details to go with what I'm saying there, but one was hard push for AI, right?
Yeah,
AI developed this, AI developed that, AI powered learning journeys. A really hard push on AI, and truth be known, very transparent, I'm having a little bit of AI fatigue right now.
Aren't we all? I'm sick of hearing it, and I use a ton of it, and I'm sick of the I call them the AI drug pushers.
Yeah.
I think reality in the next, this is only my opinion, folks, I think it's a great technology. I think it's there for the long term. I think it's a bit like the internet. We were very early days, and it's not like crypto, or the way crypto is sold. I've got some very powerful qualms around crypto, but I really do think there's definitely something there with AI. But the way it's been marketed and pushed, and I've never seen anything like it, not even in the days of the dot-com boom. I think, but I was living in the UK, and I was running a retail business, a pretty successful one. So I wasn't in the US during the dot-com. It was less prevalent in the UK. So I don't know if it was worse. Was it worse in the dot-com bubble than the AI bubble?
I think the AI bubble is worse than the dot-com.
Yeah, I do. I've never seen it. I've never seen anything like it. Have you?
It's WordCamp US starts this week, and they announced that it was going to be an AI centered event, and I was like so thankful I didn't have a ticket or bought airfare to Portland. Because like I said, I have a little fatigue on the topic. I'm hoping that it'll bevel off with time, but right now I'm up to here with it. And when that's the lead in on the page, I was like, no. The other thing was, it says that it's the first blockchain microlearning platform. And I was really trying my best. I mean,
what's blockchain got to do? Well, blockchain, to prove the person, it probably has some relevance. You could prove that person actually did the course, because online, if you're doing top certification now through Microsoft and some of like Oracle, they have you go to a center, don't you? You have to go to a specific local center, and they're videoing you to make sure it's you that answer all the questions. And they've got similar setups if you're doing it remote, because they want to make sure it's you. They want to make sure they take biometric to make sure it's you that's turned up at the training center to take the course, take the exam. They've got all that going, haven't they?
Yeah. It's and not for nothing, I did take exception. This was the first site that you referred to me where it was trying to hire everybody else to be a salesman. So it says make 250,000 pounds with 5 enterprise clients. And not for nothing, I have like nightmares about people that think they're go high level experts and all the people that are pushing from that side. And I think when you are trying to manage a learning company and you invite everyone in the world to be a salesman for you, I think you run the same risk that Go High Level went through with theirs. It might be a great option for money and generating revenue, but I think over time it waters down and devalues the brand.
Well, you're making some really fantastic points. I'm not, but you're on fire today. I'm just deflated and a bit depressed, but you're on fire. Because that's, high what's their name? High point?
Go High Level.
High level. When I ever see somebody pushing some automation solution and they're using high level, I instantaneously lose interest in them because I haven't got a high. They say a company that over-promised and under-delivered, that's high level. That's my opinion.
That's my opinion too. It does a lot of cool things. It does, but so does a lot of other CRMs. And I don't need to go through 7 friends of friends of friends to get an account and do it. That's what I'm talking about. Like that over socialization of everybody's a salesperson. We're gonna group fund.
Well, I've never, their marketing automation. I've never used it much in anger because I'm committed to WordPress. But their WordPress solution, I spent a bit of time looking at it, and it was a dog's breath. And they pushed it hard, didn't they? And it didn't go anywhere, did it? I think it's still going, but it never got the traction they were hoping for, did it?
No. There's too many other things out there that work well.
Yeah, they're stuck in the middle, aren't they? They're not WordPress, native WordPress solution, and then they're not a SaaS solution, are they? Kind of.
Technically, I guess I would call it a SaaS solution, but it's like a weird community SaaS solution. It doesn't make sense to me. The business model doesn't make sense.
Yeah. These are our opinions, folks.
Yeah, that's my opinion.
That's our honest opinions, folks. Now, let's look at WordPress. WordPress doesn't have to my knowledge, it doesn't have a purpose-made micro-learning plugin solution. But there's about 3 or 4 learning management systems. Lifter LMS is our favorite. You've got LearnDash, and then you've got Tutor LMS. I think all 3 of those are credible. And then there's 3 or 4 additional ones.
Yeah.
Can you let's just take Lifter LMS, because that's the one that you've got the most experience with, and I have as well. Can you take Lifter LMS and can it be a micro-learning platform?
Well, if we drive back to the original definition of microlearning, the answer is absolutely. Because microlearning is really about the content, not the delivery, right? And so if I have a long form course in Lifter LMS and I go, you know what, I'm struggling with course completion rates, I'm struggling with sales, I'm struggling with this, and I take that long form course and I bust that thing down into 3 or 4 courses, and each of those courses has 5 or 6 lessons in it, and each of those lessons is 5 to 8 minutes long, right? Boom, I've got microlearning. Now, if we take this, 17 steps further, that's the Lifter LMS example. Anything you build in Lifter LMS in WordPress is going to be mobile responsive anyway. So it's going to work on a mobile device. It's going to do all the things that you think you're paying for with the SaaS platform. But let's say you go one step further and you're like, I absolutely have to have a mobile app for my learners. Well, you could always go the LearnDash route, do the same thing I just described with Lifter LMS, but be in LearnDash with BuddyBoss and use their mobile application process. And then you would have a mobile app, you'd have microlearning, you'd be in WordPress, and you would be secure. You would have the benefit of a full customizable platform all the way around you. You could add content around it. You'd have a full content management system around your learning management system. And that's why I really focus on WordPress being the right solution. For the record, I don't think a lot of training people need a mobile application. Like, I think that's a way oversold concept.
Yeah, because to build a really good, there are some platforms out there that you've got the no code movement that's now placed on steroids with AI. I probably need to look at that a little bit myself, but I've just had so much on my plate. But that's on steroids now, the AI. I quickly looked at a player called Bolt that uses AI. I've been looking at that. But in general, if you're going to do it, as a proof of concept, something like Bolt, and there's a number of platforms out there, I don't see anything wrong with it. But really, after the proof of concept, you really got to if you're building something that's reasonably complicated with functionality, you're going to have to go native. And to build an app both for iOS and Android is still an expensive, time-consuming process. And I think a lot of people go into it much too early. So I totally agree with you there. So what you're really saying is it's really about the content, and a lot of the restrictions where these micro-learning SaaS was the restrictions around legacy LMS built in-house or SaaS-based platforms that had a lot of legacy code that really weren't that adaptive to micro-learning or to mobile devices. Is that about right?
Yeah, you kind of nailed that, right on the money. And I understand. So it's not that I don't get it. Like I pitch to a lot of enterprise clients about what we can do for e-learn, because I'm a SCORM specialist. I can take your SCORM content, take it from a commercial platform and move you to WordPress, save you a couple $100,000 a year.
Kirk's the schoolmaster.
SCORMpress.com. So anyway, we can do that. And I think there's a switch in like the vice president's head, right? The guy that's making the decision in the boardroom. He keeps thinking to himself or herself, we're already $8 million into this thing. I can't flush it down the drain and do something different. And I understand that battle. I understand that like it feels like you're cutting off your nose to spite your face. But if you could take that website that you're paying $300,000 a year for hosting and maintenance, and you still have a training department that's actually making the content for another $500,000 a year, like, you think about that much money being spent on e-learning, and then you go, wait a minute, Lifter LMS Infinity program, some WordPress hosting, how many users do we have? Well, great, we could probably do a great hosting package for $60, $70, $80 a month. That is a whole lot different than $400,000 a year. And so when you start really pushing the numbers and looking at a spreadsheet, on top of, you have a full content management system surrounding the learning management system, you can build whatever you want as your learning management site instead of some restricted, bespoke, SaaS platform thing with a lack of options. Some of the things in the reviews for what we talked about today was, the reviews said, there's not a lot of design options for graphics. I can't move. There's not design options for fonts or for positioning of words on the page. There's not. Well, there's a reason for that, right? It's like being the microlearning experts for these platforms. They wanted to give you something that was very restricted, very simple.
Well, it's always
your content.
Sorry, you're making a fantastic point, and I'm not being rude here, but it's always the contradiction, the yin and yang. If it's simple, there has to be a reduction in functionality and flexibility. The more flexibility and functionality you have, the more the thing's going to be complexity, I think. Would you agree with that?
I would agree. It's and it's very difficult for the people in charge of these budgets and these big companies, because if they're the first one in their circles to say, hey, you know what I think we should do? I think we should just build a whole new website and move all this stuff over. Yeah, people are going to think they're crazy, right? Because they've been locked into some platform for 12 or 15 years.
And then you've also got the struggle, and there's overlap, to some level, increasing overlap, of an internal training learning management system, which Lifter can do, but with a couple of added plugins like Fluent CRM or WP Funnel, and a couple like Fluent Booking. It can be external facing membership like Kajabi or Podia. They're really for small entrepreneurs or organizations selling courses to the public, to an audience. But then you've got these learning management systems, and some do both, like Learn Worlds. They kind of pitch themselves to both. But you've got this whole section where a learning management system is aimed for internal training, isn't it? They're like two separate worlds, aren't they?
Yeah, and they're worlds apart as far as perception goes for the people that use them.
And audience and
Yeah.
SEO, search engine optimization, and how you market yourself.
You mentioned an interesting thing, and you said the difference between internal training and external training. And it's one of the conversations I have with many of my enterprise clients, like especially about a Lifter LMS project. Because I'm like, hey, if you want to have like a private accessed internal website, no one else can get to it, but people that you assign that are logged, you can lock the whole site down by membership. Like people can't get into it at all. Like you could do that. Or you could use the membership tools, and you could say staff training clicks this icon, customer training clicks this icon, and do you want to buy a course from our menu, clicks that icon. Like literally you could have different pathways within your website that go to different content. A lot of people aren't aware that you can actually do that now in these sites. Like when you start talking about the practical application from a business perspective, some people just haven't thought that far. A lot of people think they need multiple LMSs. Like a lot of corporate people will say, oh, we need a website for internal training. We also need a website to teach our customers how to use the product. And then we also need a website for HR to use for onboarding new staff or something like that. Like they think HR needs a separate site or a separate property. And that's not true. You can build pathways within the LMSs to meet all your needs. And so you're not spending triple what you should spend.
Yeah, fantastic points. I think we're going to wrap up the show now. If you've got any questions, you can always go to the to the Membership Machine Show Facebook group, and you can ask those questions there. But Kirk, what's the best way for people to find out more about you? Because Kirk's very active on LinkedIn and on X. I call it Twitter. I think Kirk calls it X. He's very active on all the social media platforms. I've taken a break over the last couple of months because, as Kirk knows, I've been really, really busy moving and traveling, and I've been all over the place, literally, mentally and physically, haven't I, Kirk? I've been a wandering gypsy over but I've kept this podcast going, and I've kept running the business. I think, apart from a few breakdowns for me that Kirk's watched, I don't think I've done too bad a job considering what's been on my plate. What do you reckon, Kirk?
No, it's all good. For me, Mañana No Mas will lead to anything that's mine. Mañana No Mas on X, on Facebook. And then Jonathan nailed it. I'm the only Kurt Von Onen on LinkedIn. So if you want to connect there, that'd be great.
Yeah, and Kirk's been a great resource for WP-Tonic. He works with WP-Tonic, but I see him as a friend as well. And I think in general, unless I'm having a mental breakdown, we work really well. It's been a great show. If you really want to support the podcast, folks, I've just got a quick ask. If you're listening to us on your phone, on iTunes or Spotify, it's really easy to leave a review, and it really does help the show. It expands the audience tremendously. So if you are either on iTunes or Spotify on your phone, it's so easy to leave a review. They make it dead easy. It's right on the interface. And if you could leave a review, both me and Kirk would be really thankful. It really does help the show. We will be back next week with another topic around building a e-learning or membership website in 2025. We want you to be successful, so we provide all the advice and tools that you need to do that. We will be back soon, folks. Bye.